So yeah, thank you so much for joining another Showcase Your Craft event. And really, this is just a super casual opportunity just to look at the different kind of unique ways that you guys are using crafts. There's been some amazing stuff so far. Like I remember last time, there was this great document which somebody created to keep in touch with a friend. We've seen like documents for all sorts of things, and it's really just an opportunity to show off the creative ways that you're using craft. Also, it's great to see some new faces in the new community too. So thank you so much for jumping across to this new platform, Circle. I like it so far. I've really loved the positivity in there so far. So thanks so much for checking it out. Flo, I know you've got to head off early since you've got to be somewhere else. Would you like to come on stage first of all and share us a little bit about something that you've created using craft?
Yeah, for sure. So I have a blood donation appointment later, so I have to go earlier because in Germany we are on time. So that's I have to leave earlier. Yeah, I just share my screen right now.
Just before, sorry to interrupt you, Flo. I want to give people some context as well. Like you are the man behind the Craft Weekly as well right now. It was your idea, it was your thought. It's a lot of your effort. So yeah, this is the guy behind Craft Weekly, and you deserve a big round of applause for that. Since there's only a handful of us on the call, we'll give it a little round of applause. But yeah, it's awesome project.
Yeah, thanks. So that was actually the first thing I could have presented today, but I think it needs a little bit more clearance in description how we assemble the Craft Weekly. Yeah, and of course, thanks for the help, Tom and Marshall, who's not here today. Yeah, it's great that so many people respond to it in such a positive way. So that keeps the motivation up to continue assembling it. So what I want to share with you or show you today is I just called it how to engage with reading highlights and resurface notes. I think you can see my screen.
Is it possible to go full screen if possible, just so we can see it super clearly?
You mean the app? Yeah, I that's not that relevant right now, but okay, I can maximize it. So okay, I just scratched a small agenda for this. So first, why is it relevant? I don't know how you use your note-taking apps, and that's already the clicking point. There's a difference, I read about it, between note-taking and note-making. Note-taking is for a productivity system, and note-making is more of a thinking and an idea system, and to engage with your notes and think about, have a deeper knowledge about the ideas you're taking notes of. And what I try to do is I want to transform my note-taking into a note-making system, because I tend to just note things down and then dump it into a folder or whatever and never see them again. And that's why I want to show you how I try to do this with reading highlights. So I think everyone knows some platforms like Matter, whatever, to highlight readings, Instapaper, Pocket. There's so much platforms to highlight readings, and I use Raindrop for this at the moment. And I just want to bring up a demo article or an article I read in the past, because I can't, of course, highlight it live for you. This is an article I read on the Todoist blog, or the Doist blog, and I already had made some highlights in there. So normally I would go through reading it and highlight the important stuff for me. And what always keeps me off the highlighting from these platforms like Matter is that I can structure highlights right while I'm reading it. So I like that I can highlight, for example, here the heading and have it already the most left indented note. So, and everything below the heading here should be indented below it in the highlights, and that's why I'm using Raindrop for this. You will see what I'm talking about right now in short, because in Raindrop you can use different colors for the highlights. And that's how I force the structure. So yellow is actually the first color, and that's the most highest structure for me, then blue, then green, and then red. And my imports will indent the highlight depending on the color I use. So I highlight the whole article. Just as you can see here at the screen, the colors have no meaning. It's just to structure the highlights below the headings, or sometimes you have bullet points that are listed like here. So I have the point above the bullet points, and then I just indent every highlight below it. And then when I'm done highlighting, I just make sure that this is the last article I highlighted. I created a shortcut for myself, which I already shared with somewhere else, which can access the latest article in Raindrop and do some API calls. And in the end, this is the important stuff. Just use the create a new document step in Craft. I won't go into the details for the shortcut because it's not that relevant now, but I can run the shortcut. And when it finished running, it will create a new document, as you can see, and it imported all the highlights from that article into Craft right now. So what I normally do then is I turn this into a rich link just to make it look prettier, and I have a few things to engage with the content, or to structure it better. So the first thing I normally make is I just use a small template I created to add metadata at the top of the document. And sorry. Okay, so for example, I call it tags, but actually these are just links to other documents, which I structure like this. So when I say I want to tag a document, I just start with a hashtag, and then, for example, I want to tag this productivity, and we'll add this tag here, and do some more tags. Then what I will do here is often I search for related nodes just by using some terms from the article I like to search for, or I often link the author. So in this case, I know it just because I looked it up in the bottom from the other document, to link to the person, or link to other nodes that have some kind of same topic. So I just dump in some terms and see what comes up there. And then I stole a structure from Mike Schmitz. He uses to categorize ideas and things he reads, and he has basically five big things. I don't use all of them, but I use the key idea thing to mark really key ideas of an article. Then light bulb moments to mark some just blinks in the head that I didn't know about. Then I mark some quotes when articles include quotes from other persons, and I use mind-blowing for things that really matter for me and are really new for me. And with these things, I go through the whole article and then try to reformat it, format it a little bit more. So maybe I just use some highlights here, or as you can see, this is some kind of quote here. So I can just start typing quote here, and we'll have the quote tag here. And that's how I go through all the article. And to don't bore you, I just show you the finished version when I'm done using this technique. And it could look like this. For other articles, it looks different. As you can see here, I just added another tag, the habits tag, into the quotes, to the quote here. Sometimes I reformat them to make them prettier, and yeah, that's how a document can look like in that case. And now what really is great for me is that I can engage more with the content. So when I want to, let's say I want to explore what have I written or taken notes of for habits, then I can just click on the document, click on the backlinks page, and then look through what I have taken notes of here. So and all the documents with the same tag will show up in that case. That's for topics. So when I for example, when I use time management, I will of course have some other notes. I don't know how many are there. As you can see, there are different notes. This might overlap sometimes, but that's the first part. So I can easily look up the topics I'm taking notes of. And for example, I assembled a talk I hold about goal setting in an organization I'm involved in, just using the backlinks view here and looked up all the stuff. I took notes about goal setting and then packed them together into a talk. And the other thing I can do is use those categories. So for example, use the key idea tag, and then as you can see, it already has a lot of backlinks in here. And then I can look what key ideas I took in some documents. So this totally independent from the topic. It's just showing me the key ideas of articles I read or some quotes I packed into my craft base database. So when I go to the quotes document, there's a lot more backlinks here, and then I can see when sometimes I started to use topics or topic tags in the quotes too, to just have a better overview. What's the topic about? What's the quote about? But that's not in all of the notes I'm taking, and that way I can jump between different notes and try to reassemble or integrate contents into the note right here. So I just have I think I'm not finished with this process, but I just wanted to show you how easy it is to set this up with Craft and use just the backlinks view and a few topic tags and a pretty loose structure in it to show how you can engage with your contents a little bit more and bring them together. So as you can see, somehow I found another article that was related to this topic and linked the blog, because I thought it would be helpful to have this as a related topic, and then I can jump around and connect those ideas in my head better. And actually this clicks for me very often, and I remember topics a lot more when I read articles since I started doing this. Yeah, I think I got said everything I wanted to say. These articles will always just fall into my unsorted folder, and then I'm just dumping them into the resources folder, and that's I don't use folders at all anymore, because that's just work I don't need to follow anymore. Or I don't need to have the structure with folders, because I just use the tags or the links.
Brilliant. Thanks so much. I've got a couple of questions, but I want to make sure there's time for anybody on the call to ask questions too. So if you do want to ask Flo a question, feel free to throw it in chat, or you can feel free to come on screen and ask it yourself. I just wanted to, before we have any other questions, could you go into a bit more detail about Raindrop? Like, what is it for people who might not know what it is?
Yeah, Raindrop is just a web app, a web application where you can bookmark. So basically, it's a bookmarking app where you can store URLs. And it's some time ago it added the highlighting feature. And just because I saw the different colors, and then I had a look at the developer page where you can look at what the API offers, clicked for me that I could use this to structure the highlights, and you can make folders and sort your highlights. I don't do this anymore. I did this in the past when I tried it out, but normally I just use I use the unsorted folder, dump my URLs in what I want to read, then I read it, and the shortcut will automatically move it to the exported folder, and then it's gone for me. And so I'm really just using it to highlight the articles and then get them into Craft.
Awesome. And when you're putting them in the first place, do you have like certain websites you browse regularly to find this kind of stuff? Do you have like RSS feeds? Like how do you kind of structure what you want to read?
Yeah, I use RSS feeds a lot for the blogs, and then you know, there are some blogs that just are news for me. I read the news, just updates, and I don't take highlights for news normally. But when I see an article I want to take highlights of, I move it to Raindrop and start reading it there, because often these are longer articles too, and then I can't read them. I don't know, when I'm on the bus or driving with the train. Yeah.
Awesome. Any other questions from anyone on the call?
Yes. I have a question for Flo.
Yeah, sure.
Do you share this with anybody?
The notes you mean, the highlighted notes?
In Craft, do you share your Craft, this, for example, the document you're showing us now from Craft?
Yeah, sometimes I share the articles I read or the highlights I take on Twitter, but not in Craft. So this is my private space, and I don't share it with anyone else right now.
Okay. It's so specific, and it's one of the challenges that I face, which is I've got a lot of data in Evernote, and Evernote works perfect for me, and it's thousands of documents, and there's nothing fancy about it. I can quickly get to data. But that's not how my wife works. And we have a lot of information that we need to share. We've got a lot of digital information we need to share. And so I set up dashboards in Notion, which are easier. But of course, she sees what the Craft documents look like, and they're very pretty. That's not meant to be gender or anything. It's just how her brain works and my brain works. And so I was looking to see how people would share information together. That's the main reason I'm here. It's interesting to watch you do this, Flo. It's interesting to see how you use it.
Yeah.
I was just curious if you share any information in Craft, and if you do you set it up differently than information you keep to yourself?
Yeah, I think I have spaces I share with others. So, for example, for the Craft Weekly, we have a space where we work together. And that's something for another day. I think we can present that, how we use this together. So, but I totally understand your problem. I'm in the same boat. I'm an app switcher in the past, and that's why my wife just at some point said she won't do the switches with me anymore. She's now at Apple Notes, and I tried to convince her to use Craft, but she's currently not doing it because she doesn't like app switching so much than like I do. So that's my problem on that end. Okay. And for sure, that I think that's a use case for personal knowledge management for me, at least for now, and that's why the private space is perfect for this.
I'm very impressed about your concept of note taking versus note making. Are you an academic in any way? I mean, what gets you to go through? This is a lot to do to make it work for you. This isn't just casually typing a note here and a note there. This is some effort. Are you a researcher? Are you an academic?
Yeah, in my day-to-day job, I'm a software developer, but I'm interested in those spaces, so in the productivity space, note-taking, and that's just a thing I read for fun or in my free time. And I noticed that what I said earlier, that I tend to, or I forgot content I read a lot because I didn't engage with it so much, and it's better for me to read less content and engage with it then just read as much as I can and watch as much as I can, because I will forget it and don't build my own knowledge base from it.
It's never been easier to gather information together,
yeah.
Right? But that doesn't mean you're any smarter if you don't do anything with it, but it's never been easier to pile tons and tons of information together.
Yes,
true. And look, Miles, there's somebody who maybe we can try to get to speak at some point. Esme, another woman from the community. She's got a very interesting document that she shares a lot with her husband too. So I think just in your case, where the husband kind of doesn't really care what they use, as long as it's like a good-looking thing and functional. So maybe we'll try and get her to present at some point because she's got some really useful structures and workflows as well, which might be useful.
And who is this, or where do I find out? Esma?
Esme. She's in the community, both Circle and Slack, and yeah, just she's done a lot of cool sharing as well. I'll try and send some.
Oh yeah, okay.
Something to you, no problem.
Okay, you're going to send something to me. Is that what you said?
Yeah,
I do go into. Okay, I do go into that Slack channel. I think the documents that are shown there are really impressive, but they're also they seem to be one-off as opposed to a project that has a dozen legal documents and goals and action items and meeting notes, and all of a sudden there's 50 items that need to be together. How does that look in craft? And that's really what interests me more so than just, oh, look how pretty this document is and all the colors and stuff. It's beautiful, no question of that.
So actually, our next, potentially, I might bring Tim up next to speak. Is there anything else you wanted to mention, Flo? Because I think Tim might be more relevant to you as well, Miles. Flo, is there anything else you wanted to share?
No, if there are no questions anymore, then I will unfortunately need to take off or go now and look the rest of the event in the recording later.
All right. Well, thanks so much again for presenting, Flo. That was really cool.
That was fun. That was fun. Yeah, Flo, that was fun. Thank you.
Have a nice day. Goodbye.
Sure.
All right, Tim, I think you're up next. And from what I understand, you've got kind of a dashboard for projects of some kind, but I'll leave it over to you to kind of explain everything going on. So
yeah, sounds good. Yeah, thanks, Tom. So I thought I'd show 3 areas. One is my ideation process. One is the project dashboard that you just mentioned. And the third is something I do all the time, is to create craft documents using shortcuts. I find that can be extremely useful just to bring in kind of real world data into a document. So what I'm sharing here is a demo database, so I don't have to worry about revealing any deep, dark secrets or anything like that. I can show literally anything in this database. It's one that I use for training purposes. And we can certainly go into a few other areas in this if that's useful. So let me just go ahead and share my screen. Okay, there we go. And I'll bring up Craft. So just starting with the ideation process, I tend to be someone who has a lot of ideas, and a lot of the people I work with too, they say, oh, I get so many ideas. They almost talk about it like it's a curse or something like that. And because they get overwhelmed with it, their inboxes overflow. And I think what's really missing is just a place to put those ideas. It's not the fact that they're having ideas that's the problem. It's the lack of a home for them. Because just like in the physical world, if we get a lot of stuff and have nowhere to put it, then it tends to become clutter. And in the digital world, if we capture a bunch of stuff and there's no home for it, it becomes digital clutter. So the way I've been thinking about this for quite a while and practicing it for quite a while is to go through an ideation process where something starts life as an idea, and then it potentially gets into an incubating state, is the word that I use, where I'm playing with the idea. I don't know if I'm necessarily going to do anything with it at that point. And then if I incubate it to the point where, okay, this would make a good blog post or a course or something like that, then I put it into the active state. And at some point it becomes archived away. So in this demo database, I've got just a fictional company called Smile Photography, and they have a blog. So they're regularly posting things on the blog. And you'll see I've got these different distinctions here. These are the ideas: incubating, active, and done. So if we go into ideas, this is where something would be captured to, and you could even have a shortcut that puts something right into the ideas folder. So I've got one here called Making the Most of the Photos app. And as I get ideas about it, maybe I want to talk about macro photography or something would be a good thing to talk about with iPhone 13. And then as I kind of think of things, as I'm originally capturing the idea, I could start to just build a base of things. And because those, I think at that capture point, when I'm doing my morning meditation or something and I have this great idea, I just want to dump it out of my head. I don't want to even think about, is this good or bad or useful or useless or something like that. I just want to have a place where I can capture it too. And I tend to be a very visual person by nature. So one of the things I love about craft is just being able to even just grab an image from Unsplash and put it in there. So it helps connect me back with that inspiration that I had. So I've got a few examples of these here. This one, again, I've just gotten, I had an idea about, I have an iPhone, do I need a DSLR? And I've just kind of put some notes down in the moment. So the idea is some of these things might be in the idea stage, and I look at it a month later and say, what was I thinking? This is a useless idea. So I might even delete it at that point. But I might take another one of these and say, okay, this is one I really have been thinking about this one quite a bit. I want to start to kind of put it into the sandbox, start to incubate it, so I can just move it into the incubating folder. And you'll see there's another one that's incubating there. Or I'm just starting to think about, if I did write a post about it, what are some of the things that I would want to include? And if I decide, okay, this is something that's, ready, I've got enough developed here that I'm wanting to start to write the post, I could just move it into the active stage and to start to develop it from there. And the beauty of this is by the time I get to the active stage, it feels like at least half the work is done. Even though I didn't feel like I was doing work in the first place, I was just playing with ideas. I was letting them kind of percolate and develop in in a way that didn't put any sort of pressure on. It was more sort of playing in the sandbox than I need to develop this into a post. And then once it gets into the active stage, I find I've got pretty much all kind of the sort of rough information. I just develop it a bit and put it into words and structure it. And then I've got something queued up for the blog. And then once it's done, it would just move into the done. So I'd have kind of an archival piece of there. So I was thinking about where craft fits in general, and this idea of a living document is what really resonates with me. And that's what differentiates it from like an article that I found that, I might want to refer back to at some point. I find it's really conducive to kind of playing with words and images and things like that. So when I capture an idea, it's not done at that point. It's really just the seed of, something that could turn into maybe a really popular blog post or something like that. And then when I get to the point where I'm in the active stage, it essentially becomes project support. So I've got a task or a project to write this article or this book or whatever it happens to be. And this is what supports me. And this is what gives me kind of the raw information I need in order to bring the project together. So that's the ideation process. It's very, very simple. It's really just a matter of having a structure where these things can live and just getting into the habit of using it this way. All right, so that's one use case. Something else I do regularly, pretty much anytime I create a new project, whether I'm building a bird feeder or a dream home or something like that, I give it a craft document that's kind of the hub for the project. This is where everything sort of connects to. And very often these will have grown out of something that was an idea and an idea that incubated. And suddenly I've got this, let's say this dream home that I'm building. And again, I like to have the visual there just to, this looks like a pretty nice place here. So something to kind of inspire the process. And this is where I'd maybe put some high level objectives in terms of, why am I even doing this thing, just to be reminded of that. What are some key sort of attributes of that? It needs to be relaxing with an awe-inspiring view. I want to be up in Architectural Digest, let's say. And I can just, again, keeping with that theme of living document, this is something I can feel free to just add to, and I've got a place to put them. I think that's one of the most important things. And then in this particular case, I have a section called Moving the Needle, because if it's just a bunch of ideas, nothing is going to happen. It's not going to go anywhere. So this is where I'm getting more down to specifics, where I'm creating projects and tasks and things like that. And in my case, I've got, I use OmniFocus for my personal task manager. So I actually link to OmniFocus projects. So one of the active projects is I need to finalize the land purchase. So if I hover over this, you'll see it has an OmniFocus link. And if I click on that, then it takes me into the project, and I can work through the discrete actions that will lead to the land purchase being finalized, which is having land is a pretty key part of having a house too. So it's just one of those things. And I'm maybe not thinking about what fixtures am I going to put in the bathrooms at this point. I'm focused on kind of those foundational pieces. And you'll notice I have a link back to craft here as well, so I can just very easily jump between the two. So it's kind of, I've started to think about my productivity system as almost one, I call it the ultimate productivity app, even though I'm using OmniFocus and Asana and Craft. And the key here is just being able to link everything together. So I'm clicking here and going into OmniFocus, but it almost feels like I'm still in Craft because I didn't have to even think about which app I'm going to. And then I've got that really, really quick path back to Craft. I also often list other projects that I'm going to need to do in the future. Maybe it's a bit premature to work on them, but it's useful to just kind of say what are some sort of objectives as part of this bigger project. It's also, I find, very useful to be able to get to documents that are stored. In this example, they could be stored in the Finder, they could be stored in DevonThink. So if they're ones that are stored in the Finder, you'll see I've got a folder dedicated to the stream home. And if you look at the link, it uses an app called Hook. And Hook is a Mac app that is really about hooking pretty much everything together. So if you want to hook a craft document to a folder in Finder, you can do that very easily. It's just a really clever app that helps to make everything feel like one big app. So if I were to click on the Dream Home folder, you'll see it takes me right to the folder that contains some information, floor plans, things like that. I can also use it to link directly to a file. So in this case, I've got a MindNode file where I can just click on that. And maybe I just do some more planning here and just sort of start to map things out more. And then using Hook, if I bring it up, I can easily jump to other places like back to the craft document and so forth. So yeah, just a really big fan of this app. Another example is DevonThink, where DevonThink has its own links, and these links work on both the Mac, iPhone, iPad. And DevonThink is kind of, you can think of it as kind of a supercharged Finder in some ways. It's a place where you can keep documents, where you can very easily find them, tag them, search them in really powerful ways. So if I were to click on this link here, then it's going to open up DevonThink. And I'm seeing kind of something similar to the Finder where I've got all these documents at my disposal. I can open them up, I can make changes. And then again, I could use Hook if I wanted to very quickly go back to Craft, or I've even got an alias in here that points me back to the Craft documents. So I can jump back there. And similarly, I've got a mind map stored in DevonThink that I could easily pull up from the Craft document. Yeah, so let's just go back to the dashboard here. If you were using something like Trello or Asana, this could be just a jumping off point to the different phases. Maybe you're working with builders and things and you want to involve them in this collaborative phase. So that's another really useful use case. And then even like daily notes might refer to discussions about the dream home, and you can kind of keep a log of those there. So this can take many different forms depending on what's being built. If it's something like a bird feeder, maybe I just have a list of supplies and links to some interesting articles about building bird feeders rather. And again, I might have a link to the project where I'm actually doing that. So just it's very simple in concept. Just have a central point that relates to the project and make it as convenient as possible to get to the different pieces of the project. And it's really not very much effort to set all of this up, and it more than pays for itself in the time savings. Okay, so that's the second one. I'll just show one more, which I mentioned is the use of shortcuts to create craft documents. And this is from I've got a site called Learn OmniFocus, and I recently led a session on preparing for the unexpected. So if something comes along in life that you weren't expecting, for instance, the power goes out. This is one one example that I shared, it's you don't want to be having to think about creating notes and things like that and tasks. You just want to be able to essentially push a button and have the technology kind of guide you through the process that you've already thought through. So I'm just going to jump over to shortcuts for a moment. And if we jump into, where's my, yeah, I've got it under the unexpected, navigating unexpected. So you'll see I've got a few shortcuts that I built here. One that I can run when the power is off, and this one specifically references Craft. So I'm just going to open that one up. And what it does is it uses Markdown to create a note, because when the power goes out, I want to keep track of what's happening. I want to capture some insights for the next time the power goes out. Maybe I didn't charge up my batteries, or I want to buy a generator for next power outage because this time it was out for a week or something like that. And so this is just making it very easy for me to create a note in the appropriate place within Craft. So specifically, I'm putting it in my private space. There's a folder you can see in the background called Priority. And then I'm inserting the current date. So I'm date stamping it based on when the power went out, and then I'm pulling in this text. And if there's sort of an emergency situation or something unexpected, you might want to send a text message to people in your life, maybe to family or colleagues or something like that, just to let them know what happened. Again, you don't want to have to think about writing out a text message. Maybe you've got your hands full dealing with other things. So this sends this text into myself for this example. And then it also opens up OmniFocus, and I've got a template in there that I can use when the power goes out. All right, so let's see this in action. So I'm going to click play, and it's going to prompt me for the template in OmniFocus. I'm going to say the power just went out, so I'm going to create that as a project. And this one actually just prompts me, do I want to start up the wood burning stove? And I think a lot of places in the world, it's a pretty warm night right now, so I'm not gonna say yes to that. So I'll just say continue. And now if I just show in OmniFocus what's available, it's guiding me through the process to say, check my breaker box, see if it's just my home that's out. And then I'm gonna maybe go on to the hydro site. I'm going to phone the hydro company. And then it just takes me through the different steps. I want to make sure I unplug appliances so they don't get damaged when the power goes on, et cetera, et cetera. And if I jump back over to Craft, waiting for me in the emergency preparedness, or sorry, in priority, is one that was just created here. So it's got today's date on it. It has a link to some resources. So this is another note in Craft where, as I've been preparing, I live in British Columbia in Canada, so I've got links to the outage map, so I can just click on that and very easily see. Looks like there's a few outages going on in DC at the moment. And then I can just access some general notes, things that I want to make sure I have on hand and so forth. And then as things are happening, I could just put in some notes using text expander to drop in this went out or something like that. And then maybe an hour later, I have a log that I just talked to BC Hydro, and they say it's going to be out for the next couple of days because there was a major failure or something in the system. It doesn't, unfortunately, the power rarely goes out here. So, but I just have this log of activities, which in the moment might seem a little sort of redundant. Yeah, of course, I know that, but looking at it a month from now or 6 months from now can be really useful to look back at this information. I'm sorry, this was meant to go up and log of activities. And then insights for the next power outage would be charge batteries regularly. Maybe they hadn't been charged in 2 years and they didn't have any juice left in them. So this is something I would look at once the power's back on and just say, okay, what are some tweaks that I can make to my system to make sure that that it goes more smoothly the next time.
Awesome.
Yeah, so those are the three. I use these sorts of things all the time, and they, I find they really make a big difference.
Well, thanks so much for sharing. Again, I'm going to open up for any questions in just a sec. I wanted to make a comment too. Like I always forget how much you can do with shortcuts, and it had my mind blown just the other day. I want to start making something soon, which is kind of referencing people I'm friends with, family members, kind of track things going on there. Like it could be birthdays, could be activities, talking points, that kind of thing. And I completely forgot you could do some of that with shortcuts too. Like just using the shortcuts app, you could take like the birthdays out of it. You can have like notes from it too. I always forget just how much you can do with shortcuts.
Yeah, and Craft in particular has really strong support, and it's one of the many things I like about Craft. So you can create you can add to an existing Craft document, which can be really useful if you've got a list of ideas and you just want to quickly add to it. You can do what I just did here, create a Craft doc. You can open up Craft and search for something specific. You can just simply open Craft, open a specific document, or open a space. So combine these really give a lot of power, and again, just give I think the more convenient technology is, the more attractive it is, the more likely we are to use it. As soon as there's even a bit of friction, if you need to launch an app and go into the search and remember what to type and so forth, it's very easy to get derailed at some point, even in a simple process like that. Or if the power goes out, your first impulse is probably not, I'm going to create a node in Craft, unless it's ridiculously easy to do that.
Yeah, true. I want to give Melly's going to chat. Melly's going to chat last. I want to make sure she gets a little bit of time to chat. But anybody on the call who has questions left for Tim, it'd be really good if there's any questions right now. And you can do that in the chat, or you can do it verbally, however you prefer.
Yeah, Miles.
Tim, how do you define Craft in your workflow? So you've got OmniFocus, you've got DevonThink. Looks like maybe you even have Trello in there. You don't call it your project manager or your task manager. I'm sure that's OmniFocus.
Mm-hmm.
What words would you use to identify where Craft fits into your flow?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, OmniFocus is my personal task manager. I actually use Asana for collaboration. So when I'm working with other people, those communications and tracking go into Asana. Craft is really, I think it's essentially a note-taking app. I would use it the way a lot of people would use Apple's Notes app. And it really emphasizes living documents more so than kind of archival notes. I'd say that's kind of the sweet spot. And in some cases, I might develop a document in Craft and it ultimately ends up living somewhere else. Maybe other people need access to it in Dropbox or Google Drive or something like that. So I might store it in there as Markdown or PDF or something like that. But it really emphasizes these are not static bits of information. These are things that I'm going to be developing, and I'm going to be linking to other notes and so forth. So it's I think that's, and also things like I'm not going to store videos and things in Craft. That's where something like DevonThink is much better suited. So it becomes kind of sort of the filing cabinet of multimedia information that can be easily referenced from Craft as needed.
So for example, would you create a travel folder that's a living document while you're planning the trip? You're gathering your airplane information and the hotel and the rental car and sites to see. And then when you're done with it, it's no longer living. You move it out of Craft?
So if I go in here, for instance, I could go into like countries I'd like to visit, like Hungary, for instance. And so I'm just sort of starting to capture information and link. And to me, something like travel it still is a living document, because even if I, spent a week in Budapest and loved it, there's still a good chance I'm going to want to go back at some point. So I'd still, even if I'm not actively developing it, I still want to have it at my fingertips, or maybe I'm talking to someone who's from Budapest and they tell me about this amazing restaurant. Oh, next time you're back, you want to check that out. So living means it could still be unedited for months or years to come, but it's still kind of part of my life. It's something that could potentially be updated and changed and added to.
I love that. I want to maybe move on to Melly now. We've got about 10 minutes left to go. I think you've got to go as well, right, Tim? So
yeah, and I'll need to drop off. But yeah, thanks very much for the opportunity to be here today, Tom.
Thank you. Thanks for presenting.
Really enjoyed the experience.
That was excellent. That was really
okay. Thank you.
Very good. Melly, if you're up for it, over to you. I'd love to see what you're sharing today. And what's your background?
This is Seattle. So this is,
Wow.
I'm up on the roof area of my building, and I get to face the beautiful downtown area.
What a background. I'm a little bit jealous.
Give you guys a treat. All right, let me share my screen. All right, can you see my screen okay?
Yep.
Yep.
Perfect. And I won't be able to see your faces too well, so just let me know. So first off, I'm Melly. I am a software engineer by profession. I am also doing my master's in computer science with a specialization in using artificial intelligence for good, especially in the area of ecology. I use, like today, I'm not exactly sure what we're going to go through, especially because we have a limited amount of time. That's okay. We'll figure it out. I will post this link in the chat for later if anybody would like any. If you need the links, there you go. So my craft I use as my second brain. It is where I go to think and to remember as well as explore. It is a fun thing I do when I need to relax, as well as active thinking and research and different things like that. I want to definitely call out that much of my PCAM is inspired by Nick Milo and his company Linking Your Thinking. So I actually just finished up the Linking Your Thinking Workshop 8, of which I would highly recommend. And it's all around using a PCAM and linking notes together and how to build something like that. Although it's mainly in Obsidian, and I'm the only graduate with Craft. So I'm excited to bring this to them, and I'm actually showcasing this later today for them. So now you know a little bit of that, we're gonna first off jump into my home note, which has my library, which is how, as my craft notes are getting bigger, how I'm able to still be functional in this space. And then I might dive into a couple of my top use cases. And then I have, based off the questions we've had earlier in the session, I have a couple examples that might help answer how I do those. For all of this isn't a presentation. If you have any questions, especially since we're limited on time, please feel free to just unmute and go ahead and ask them. If you ask them in the chat, I might not be able to see them. So Tom, if you wouldn't mind just letting me know, that would be great.
Sure, no worries.
So for mine, I went with a garden theme because I am in software and research, and I am inside all the time staring at my computer. And I miss nature. I'm originally from a rural area, which is very different than the world you can see behind me. So I wanted to bring in nature a little bit, so it's a place I can relax and just remember. So to start, you can see on the left here, I have a folder for my research, but we're mainly going to be hanging out in the garden. How the structure works is that the basis of it is I have a knowledge forest, where seeds are notes that are usually just a title. They might have a sentence in them. They're not very well developed. I'll move them over to the ferns as they get a little more developed and may have some links or may have some more thoughts in them. And then by the time they get to the forest, I feel pretty good about them. And this is just an easy way for me to drag and drop. I don't get too hung up on it. It's just a good way for me when I'm in different moods and I come into here, and I might want to go work on a note that's fairly fleshed out, or I might want to deal with something brand new. It's an easy way for me to split those. There's not much in trail work yet, but that's where I have any that I've gotten too big and are unuseful anymore. So I'm going to be splitting them apart and kind of working with them there. The incubator is really where I bring in thoughts of my own, such as writing ideas or things like that I really want to mule over that might be being brought together by all my other notes. You will see an example later on, but the basket stand is my idea of Nick Milo's maps of content. What it is a living document that you link in other notes. It's a way of kind of grouping like notes together, and instead of a folder, it allows it to be more reusable, because you can have linked notes into different of these types of documents, and it allows you to do some of your thinking on the fly. And so I'm going to go into an example later, but that's where I keep all of those. And then I found it really useful. For a while, I actually just had seeds, ferns, and forest. And I felt very frustrated by the amount of different just items, such as articles or books. I'm a big reader, that I had there. And so I ended up splitting them out into different groups. And I tried my best to think, what would I do if I was in a garden? And so my statues are things like organizations and people, because it just was a fun visual for me. I also have something I call the storage hut, which is just things that are relevant to my pecan, but I don't actively use a lot. So there might be logs, all the different tools I use as a software engineer. I don't do much thinking on them for the most part, so they hang out in there, and different tags I have, as well as I have timelines and taxonomies. So that's kind of a peek into the overview. Where we're going to go next is, let me go down a little bit. So this is my home note. I call it Open the Gate. It's really the entrance in. And again, it's very plant themed just for fun. So my favorite part as a top-down thinker is the library. So this could be populated with some help, shortcuts or different things like that, or scripting, but I chose to do this manually, mainly because it allowed me to think things through. It is a based off the linking your thinking classification system, which it basically combines some of the Cutter, Dewey Decimal, and Universal Decimal systems. And it changes, the main thing it changes is it adds knowledge management and personal management here at the front, out from, I don't remember off the top of my head what those change, but most of the others are in a similar manner. I don't actually number things. Some people do. I personally don't like to keep track that far. So the numbering is really just for a way for me to be able to skip down to those regions and kind of think it through and be able to see different areas that I might want to go in. The other way I can keep track is, like I said, I come in with different moods. So I really quickly, to try to get over the block of having an empty page, I look at I jump into this note and I go, I want to learn something new today. Okay, so I could go to my reading list, see something I haven't read before, including some articles, or I could jump into my Always Explore, which is where I have just curiosity questions that I want to go look up. Maybe I want to make a book note, and so I give myself a little instruction on what to do there. I probably could also put a link in, but I haven't needed it as of yet. If I've been really digging history, and so I point myself towards some easy ways of getting there. And I find this is nice, even though there's a lot of overlap between this and the library note. Maybe I'd go to the library note, look at history, but sometimes I find I don't actually know what I want to do until I'm looking at this list and I'm like, you know what, this one's drawing me to this area. And so I have found this really useful. Most of the others, I'm not going to go into today. There's the Always Explore is actually right here, because I also jump into that one quite often. And I try to keep my values close just to have them there. So going into what we said about the baskets, well, you'll see I have quite a few variety of interests, going from things from software engineering to history and Victorian era, to looking at ethics, and I do love a good myth. And so I keep track of the notes I have going through these. I don't think I've got a good example there. But one of my probably most worked out ones is I am also an equestrian. I love horses, and this basket is really to show around horses, but it's also a fun one because it combines all the others. So the history of horses and how they've been used has been fascinating to me, and how horses have been pretty critical to different moments in history. And so I have a way to group them without having to think through, do these fit under history or this? Which one should they go in, that I would have to do with a folder. So I really enjoyed that. Going over to like how I use it for my books and my reading, I will always have the title. And this is actually a template that I think I have published, but if not, I will be very soon. It's pretty simple. I keep the title up here. I use icons, so as I'm wandering around in my notes, I can tell what it is. So I just type in book. I use blue book for when I haven't read it yet, red if I did not like it, green if I loved it, and orange is just kind of like, okay, that was fine. So The Jungle is by Uptown Sinclair. It was published at the beginning of the 1900s, and it's all around unions and the struggle that immigrants had, especially in the meatpacking industry. And so I can do nice, I had some thoughts and some themes that arose from it that can get linked in, as well as being able to add in critical knowledge. And I love that Craft makes it easy to add in images. And so these are actual images he took and of things around the time, but it just really gave a sense of like what it was like to be in that era and how to go about it. Let's see how we're doing on time. We're just about out, so I will hold for questions, but for Miles, just so you know, you can ask them. This is one of my classes that was in my master's that had quite a few things going on, but the biggest area is was my semester project that has since turned into my master's thesis. And so this is where I keep all that information together. And so I'm happy to go into that further for a larger project. And then I do have I personally use a whole separate area that I share off with my partner. He doesn't use any note-taking apps, so it's pretty simplistic way to keep track of different recipes, different things with the kids. And then we have been going through the Marvel Cinematic Universe for the past year and just finished. So I've got a bunch of notes on that and a checklist. So those are some things I'm happy to show, or if you have questions.
Hey, first of all, that was like fantastic, and I particularly like for me, I really like the like I want to page, because I often, I've also often like an hour to kill, and I want to do something semi-productive like learning or writing or doing something. And at the moment, I'm kind of between big projects too, so I don't always necessarily have a project to be working on. So that is perfect. Like you come in, what kind of mood am I in for? Oh, let's try this. I really like that idea. But yeah, I want to make sure there's a little bit of time for anybody on the call to ask a quick question. Anybody want to ask Melly something? Okay.
I would normally ask questions, but I have to go. It's 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock. So it was very good, very fun, interesting presentation.
Sounds great.
Yeah,
Miles, if you have any questions, feel free to ping me on Circle, and I'm happy to answer them, especially if there's an overlap with where you're at.
Thank you.